Uh, Good afternoon and welcome. This is day 3 of reInvent 2024. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's a busy week and hope you're all having an amazing reInvent. This is our favorite week of the year and great to see all of you. Before we start, a quick show of hands. How many of you took an elevator, an escalator, either if you've taken the flight to Vegas, the airport, in your hotel, or across the different venues of reInvent? All of you, fantastic. How many of you can actually relate or translate elevators and escalators to the topic of the day, Gen AI and safety? One or two, okay. Today we're going to talk about a fascinating story of elevators, escalators, building safe generative AI applications, and you're going to love it. My name is Shyam Srinivasan. I'm a principal product manager with AWS. I lead product management for Amazon Bedrock Guardrails, which is our flagship service for responsible AI and the focus of today's session. It's my honor and pleasure to be joined by two fine gentlemen. First, it's an honor to invite Tero Hottinen, who is the VP and Head of Strategic Partnerships from KONE Corporation, the leader in the elevator and escalator business. We are really grateful to Tero. He joins us all the way from beautiful Finland. Hopefully it's warmer here. So thank you, Tero, for joining us here. And it's an equal pleasure to be welcoming my esteemed colleague, Tala Chata, who's a senior generative AI specialist solutions architect, who keeps me honest and is going to tell you all about the technical intricacies of Bedrock Guardrails. So let's get started. A quick roundup of the agenda. We'll talk about what is Bedrock Guardrails, give you a quick overview. Hopefully some of you have seen it. Why did we build it, what it contains. I'll also talk about how it works from an architecture point of view. Then Tala will keep me honest and complement that with an interactive product demo, as no slide can do justice other than a real product. And then we welcome Tero to come on stage to share the KONE story, the amazing partnership that we've had with them with AWS over the years. And then again, we'll complement that with a demo of the application that KONE has built in partnership with AWS called Technician Assistant. And we'll wrap it up with some resources for you, some follow-on sessions. Tomorrow, we have a workshop which we would love for you to attend. So when we talk about generative AI, models come into play. The models are getting bigger, better. You saw us announcing our latest models at Matt's keynote on Tuesday. But it also brings in a set of challenges, right? It brings in things like where we want to be careful about. You don't want the applications that you're building to be introducing undesirable or irrelevant topics that you don't want within your environment. More importantly, you don't want any toxic or harmful content that could be harmful, offensive for applications within your own corporation or across your environment that you're building. Privacy protection is paramount for all of us. We don't want to divulge our private information, be it name, address, phone number, if you're in the US, something, a social security number, and so on and so forth. And we want to ensure that such information is redacted or masked before it sends it out through the application. In recent times, something called prompt attacks has taken into prominence. Although it has been there for a while, recently it has become more intelligent. Now, what prompt attack is as you provide your input to the application, it tries to fool or manipulate your AI system or the model to generate inaccurate or even irrelevant responses. So that could be a huge problem, and you certainly want to avoid that. And when you talk about models, yes, models are getting better, models are getting bigger, models can process more, but the problem of hallucination, which is basically where the model is generating inaccurate or fabricated information, still remains, and that has got to be addressed. Now, when you come to an organization, we go beyond that, right? We want some additional controls. Use cases are different. There are tons of use cases in every organization, be it in a department or otherwise. You want customization of your safeguards to protect all those attacks that I mentioned in the previous slide to address for your specific use case. Now, responsible AI has become big and is actually a pillar in many organizations, and there are a set of responsible AI policies that a lot of companies define, and you want your safety controls to adhere to those policies. And then, as we say, our policy within AWS is to give you model choice, because we believe that no one model can address all the use cases of any organization. But having said that, you want a consistent level of safeguards across all your models, across all your applications. Now that we have set a stage, let's look at a very basic example of the components of when you're building a GenAI application. Now you have the application itself. Now feeding to the application is the logic that goes into your prompt, which is your input to what has to be done to address your use case. And of course, the model itself, which is powering the application and giving you those responses. This is great. This is a very simple use case. I'm not even talking about complex use cases. But the problem is that there are weak links at every step of the way. Now, poor application logic can cause unintended attacks. Prompt hijacking can lead to application misbehavior. And finally, the choice of the model and the ability to understand can cause a risk of misinterpretation. So you want something that will have safeguards at every layer. And that's where I want to introduce you to Amazon Bedrock Guardrails. So Amazon Bedrock Guardrails sits right at the juncture of giving you safeguards at every layer. You can apply customized safeguards where you can use all of them, any of them, in any combination based on your generative AI application requirements and responsible AI policies. Now, what does Guardrails contain? I talked about a bunch of potential attacks and threats that you have. And what Guardrails gives you is safeguards at each of those threats so that you can customize them, setting thresholds, setting the required amount of safeguards that you need. Now, we'll go into each detail of each of these. But since we launched Guardrails, we haven't been quiet, as you can imagine. So I want to iterate what we announced this week, yesterday and today. We have made Guardrails more capable, more powerful to address the increased power of GenAI applications. We're extremely excited that we announced earlier today when Swami in his keynote announced image support for Guardrails, which means that you can build multimodal applications with the same amount of safeguarding and safety that you were able to do with text content. This is amazing because models are getting better at multimodal applications, and we want to ensure that you have the same level of control as well as security for safeguarding your applications. The one thing which we are extremely excited to announce is our newest baby as a safeguard called automated reasoning check. Matt Garman, if you've heard him at the keynote yesterday, launched this where we actually identify correct and explain factual claims in responses using a technique called automated reasoning. Now we'll go into the next level of detail in a following slide. Now that I've just given you a high-level overview of Guardrails, let's look at each of them and how you actually can use them. The first Guardrail I want to talk about is something called a content filter. With content filter, it detects and filters out harmful content across many of these categories that I've listed on the slide. It's as simple as setting a threshold. The higher the threshold, the more restrictive it becomes. You can choose different thresholds for different categories depending on what kind of content you're expecting in your application. You can do that both for text and for images starting today. Now, I also talked about prompt attacks. The same thing applies for prompt attacks, where you have a prompt attack filter which helps you protect against things like prompt injections, jailbreaks, where your input is actually trying to manipulate the system, and Guardrails helps you safeguard against those attacks. Moving on, each of these Guardrails, the name is so simple that you can actually, I don't even need to explain. Denied topics is something that where you want a list of topics that you don't want to be passed through your application. You want it to be avoided. So what you do is you define the name of the topic. You go ahead and detect these topics based on what you've defined. You can actually give a description in simple natural language, and you can also add phrases to make it more specific based on your use case. I touched upon PII. The way we do PII filters is two ways. One is we give you a set of about 30 PII labels that you can actually select and then choose to be masked or blocked, depending on how you want your application to redact the PII information. Of course, we can't catch all of them because it depends on the company, on the place, on the country, on the environment. So we also allow you to define your own, where you can use regular expressions to detect regex patterns, and you can do the same safeguarding. I talked about denied topics earlier. We go to the next level of detail of specific words called word filters, where you can actually define specific words that you wanted to be safeguarded against. Now, we give you a flag where you can filter all profanity, where we have a set of profanity words that you can actually avoid. In addition to that, you can define the kind of words that you want to avoid and filter out. You can either define actual words or upload a file with a list of words. Now, having said that, I talked about hallucination earlier. The way we do hallucination and how you want to do it is in two ways. This is the check that we introduced in the summer called contextual grounding. There are two ways to do contextual grounding. One is grounding and relevance. And I'll explain it to you taking a very simple example. Suppose you have a RAG application, which is very common in GenAI today, and your source has a list of countries and their capitals. Simple example, right? You have the capital of United Kingdom is London, the capital of Japan is Tokyo, right? Now, if your input prompt is saying, what is the capital of Japan? And the response comes as, the capital of Japan is London, that means it is obviously a grounding error. It is a wrong answer because it is not adhering to your grounding source, which has the right information. So the hallucination is detected right there from a grounding perspective. On the other hand, if you ask the same question and say, what is the capital of Japan? And the response comes as, the capital of the United Kingdom is London, then it is relevance. Although the answer is right, yes, the capital of United Kingdom is London, and it has picked the right source, but it is not relevant to the actual question that you asked. So as you can see, we give you the flexibility of choosing a confidence score based on the grounding, based on the source, as well as the relevance based on the question that you ask. Now based on this and based on our own internal benchmarks, we see that more than 75% of hallucinations in RAG-like applications are filtered and detected, which is a huge number, and a lot of our customers use this extensively. Now to the latest baby, automated reasoning check. Now we want to make LLMs factually accurate. Automated reasoning is a technique which Amazon and AWS has been using in a lot of our other services over the years. Services like IAM, S3 have been using that. And as you heard from Matt, we said this becomes more relevant in a LLM-based application or GenAI. Now, we want to make these LLMs factually accurate. We want to clearly identify factual claims and suggest corrections when they are fabricated. Now, it's just not about accuracy or inaccuracy. We also want to use soundedness. And what I mean by that is, we will make a validity determination when we are absolutely certain, and we'll give you the proof based on the policy that you have defined. And this is very relevant in use cases such as HR policies, legal documents, insurance claims, and so on, where you want to be absolutely certain, where if there is some inaccuracy, you want to detect that inaccuracy right away and also suggest how it should be corrected. So each policy is mapped to a mathematical logic on the back end, and that logic actually gives you the factual claim of whether it's accurate or not. And last but not the least, as with a lot of AWS services, we want transparency to be on the core. So we want it to be absolutely transparent and explain why a claim is accurate or not. Now, having said that, let's take a quick overview on how it actually works, right? Behind the scenes, what happens. Now, typically, you have a user input. and you have the policies which I have at the bottom of the screen. Now, these are all the policies that Guardrails support today, but you have the flexibility of choosing any of them, all of them, any combination, what have you, depending on your use case. Now, with Bedrock, you have two APIs, which you might be familiar with. There's an invoke model and a converse API, which you typically use. What happens is the user input goes through the policies, ensures that that policies adheres to what you want to protect against. From there, you actually, once that is done, it actually calls an inference call to the model that you have chosen within Bedrock. And the FM responses are also guarded against the same set of policies. So you have an end-to-end solution for safeguarding right from where you have your user prompt and your model responses to get your desired final response. Now, this you can do with both the invoke model as well as the converse API. But a lot of times, customers like you have told us that I don't want to invoke the inferencing model. Just give me the set of safeguards to protect against my user prompt, and let me have the flexibility of calling the model when I choose or any model that I choose. It could be outside of Bedrock. And that's why we introduced earlier in the summer something called Apply Guardrail API. Now, the Apply Guardrail API is also commonly referred to as the independent API, where what happens is that the model is not invoked. The Apply Guardrail API is applied on the policies that you define. Again, any combination, same thing applies. And you don't need to invoke a model, or you're not bound to the set of Bedrock models. When you do, the Apply Guardrail API actually can be called, it's a public API, so it can be called to any model, whether it is in Bedrock, it's a self-hosted model, maybe you have a model built with Amazon SageMaker or EC2, or maybe a third-party model as well, and get the final response. So what it does is basically gives you the flexibility to use the safeguards without invoking the model. So in summary, Amazon Bedrock Guardrails evaluates prompts and model responses and works with all of the rest of the Bedrock tools to not make it a siloed solution. What I mean by that is you might have agentic workflows, you might have agents, you might have knowledge bases in RAG applications. Guardrails goes together with all of these, with all the models supported in Bedrock, including the newly announced Nova models, as well as self-managed or third-party models. But don't take my word for it. I want to see the proof of the pudding, and I want to invite my friend Tala to show us a demo. Welcome, Tala.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shyam. It is great that Shyam mentioned all these different policies that are in place. In total, you have like 6 policies. You could choose between denied topics. You could remove the certain filters. You can even detect hallucinations using contextual grounding, or the new features such as automated reasoning. Let's have a look at one of those features. Right. It is pretty easy for you to create one of those guardrails. Right. All you have to do is, for example, go to the Amazon Bedrock console. On the left-hand side, you will have the option to select guardrails. And then, pretty easily, you could create a guardrail. All that you have to do is provide a name, what guardrail should be called for. Later, you can define, once a guardrail is invoked, either at the input level, what message to display when that particular guardrail has been invoked. You could even choose between a custom message. So there obviously is already a message, and you can choose between a custom message as well. You can change the messages, whether what should be displayed at the input level when it comes from the user and it has been blocked, or one that has been generated by the model and it is blocked, and what message should be displayed at that particular time. If you move further ahead and click next over there, you end up at the point where you need to select a certain policies. For example, the first one is to create content filters. Right? There are obviously many different policies that are available over here, and you can choose whichever you want to. On the screen, you can see how to create a content filter policy. There are 2 different aspects to it. One is the harmful categories, all the ones that has been defined by Amazon Bedrock Guardrails that are available to you, such as hateful content, insults, sexual, or violence content that might be available in your text, or with the latest features that have been now made available in the images as well. You could select between either all of them or select one of those. So for example, for images, you may only want to have like insults, sexual, or violence as one of those categories that you wish to be detected. You could also select how much of a strength you need for them to be there, right? So for example, maybe for insults, you could tolerate, let's say you are operating in a social media business and there could be certain content that contains insult, right? And your business allows you to tolerate certain medium level strength of insults that are there, but not so strong. So you could tweak the guardrail policy however you wish to be for your business. Or you could turn them on or off for each one of those. It is, sorry. Apologies, it just went a little back. Over here, you also have the opportunity to not only set the policy at the input level, but you can tweak the policy also at the output level. Right? You could define different kind of parameters for when the model has generated the output. So for example, you not only use the unimodal models, such as, for example, Titan Text or Llama 3.1 based models, but you go for multimodal models, such as Claude 3 family or Claude 3.5 family of models, right? Where you also can input images. Or you go for stable diffusion-based models, which can generate output of images, or the new NOVA models where the output can be images as well. So you can define both the textual as well as the image policy, both at the input as well as the output level. Once your policy has been generated, you select the strength of those. You further go on and create that particular policy. Once you could review that policy, if all the parameters that you have set are perfect and aligned with your business strategies, you move on further and create the guardrail. The guardrail is immediately created for you and promptly available for you to test. You could further select what the input should go to it. For example, here is an example of a harmful image. You could say that, OK, please explain me this attached image. And quickly, you could see how easy and quick guardrail intervention happens. You can also see the trace of which guardrail policy was invoked, such as insults, and how much was its strength. You could also use it with independent API that Shyam just mentioned and expect the same behavior, upload the similar file, either use the model or don't use the model as is, and expect the guardrail intervention to happen. This is how so simple Amazon Bedrock Guardrails is there for you to build safe applications with you. I would now like to invite Tero to talk about how they do it at KONE.
Awesome, thank you, Talha. You know, I have used to come on stage with AC/DC on the background, but then I realized that there is no need for that today, because this is like level 300. That is for myself hardcore enough. Some started with asking that how many of you has used elevator and escalator during the week, and well, obviously everybody. But I would like to continue on that how many of you during your lifetime has got entrapped into an elevator, so stuck into an elevator? 5, wow, that's pretty a lot on this size of group. And I have myself personally also that experience. I was roughly 10 years old when I got stuck into an elevator. Took like 15 minutes to get out, and I can tell you it was a horrible experience. Fast forwarding some 35 years, here I am, working with the global leader in elevators, deploying the digital stuff in order to ensure that that stuff does not happen ever again. So I'm Tero, I'm the head of Global Partner Strategy Partnership at KONE, which is a global leader in elevators and escalators, with the purpose of shaping the future of cities. Just some numbers of our operations, maybe first of all highlighting that our equipment moves 2 billion people every single day. So I'm confident that everybody of you has used also our equipment. Currently we maintain roughly 1.7, 1.8 million equipment out there globally in 60 countries. And our maintenance guys, the true professionals, they are doing roughly 100,000 maintenance visits per day. In our strategy, we want to digitally enable all of our people to be able to deliver digitally enabled customer value. In the picture there is just like peaks on certain spot solutions that we have digitalized in our internal operations, so kind of with the customer delivery operations. Maybe highlighting just the predictive maintenance solution, our digital flagship service with which we have been able to reduce those entrapments by more than 50% on average. The thing is that we are continuing on this journey, really kind of either already having globally scaled those solutions, or then we are doing the global scaling and then adding essentially a connecting layer on top of that so the Gen AI can do the magic. On a one specific topic on which we have built now a production version of Gen AI, or use case for Gen AI, is the maintenance operations. And I would say that the actual challenge we are solving is twofold. First of all is the maintenance products, or the products under our maintenance. That is a very diverse set of different equipment consisting of elevators, escalators, automatic doors, access management gates, auto walks, whatnot. And that is not the challenge. The real challenge is that there are tens, if not hundreds, of different companies making that equipment. And the industry standard is that everybody maintains everybody's equipment, meaning that there are at least more than 1,000 different types of elevators also in our maintenance base, which means that no single field service engineer can know all of those. And there are many cases that there comes that you just don't know how to fix that specific problem with that specific equipment. That's one. The other one is the generation change, so it's a generation shift. In most of the Western countries especially, the age pyramid is like upside down. So the population is aging, meaning that also the professional field service guys tend to starting to get retiring, and there is not that much of the young generation coming to fulfill those jobs. And especially this kind of job is not that sexy anymore, especially if you don't have the digital experience or digital empowerment of yourself, focusing on the core job that you should be doing. Luckily, there are digital solutions and tools like generative AI with which you can tackle both of these problems. For the problem I mentioned, that if there happens a case that the technician actually is not able to solve the problem at hand, we have a solution for that, which is essentially call a friend. So we have technical help desks, which are like regional call centers in which there are THD agents, like experienced field service engineers and so on, who have access to all the relevant documentation that there may be, user manuals, field service reports, maintenance reports from the past, IoT data, so they can then go and dig out on that specific piece of equipment what might be wrong and helping the guy there out on the field. May take easily several hours. It easily takes even 30 minutes to get the hold on someone on the call. So it takes time and may be frustrating. What we now have built is a generative AI assistant in between. So essentially mobile application that has access to all the same documentation and can provide the same answer in a couple of minutes essentially. So truly speeding up the problem solving process and meaning that speeding up the customer service. This definitely has not been done solely by KONE. This has been done hand in hand together with AWS. We started the journey somewhere late last year when there was like a true hype with Gen AI that we were one of the companies that let's do something. And first of all, it wasn't like, yeah, we don't know what to do, but we knew that with our field operations consisting of 40,000 professionals out there globally in 60 countries, there are massive challenges that we very likely can solve with generative AI. We were lucky enough that with our partnership, we got an early access to AWS's Gen AI Innovation Center, which means essentially having access for truly world-class, best possible experts in that field. We did a 4-week joint engagement doing a proof of concept that how we possibly could utilize LLMs to solve those field operation challenges, specifically on the maintenance of the equipment. The results were very promising. So then we turned to AWS prototyping team, and hand in hand, via 5-week development sprint, we created the first prototype, actual prototype that could be delivered on the field. And the field validation started early this year. We first started the first phase with our technical help desk users, roughly 50 people, using the solution, and obviously constantly improving the solution as we go forward. And the main point of this was that these people could then compare that would the solution be able to solve the same challenge that they are actually solving. Well, it did, and we continued to the next phase of the pilot, the actual rollout to the actual end user, which are our field service engineers. Right now we have this in use with roughly 250 persons in 4 countries, 2 in Asia, 2 in Europe, 4 languages, and constantly iterating based on the actual end user feedback. Towards the end of the year, we have now been optimizing the solution constantly, and especially kind of migrating towards better models, on which my friend Talha will soon talk more. And then at the end of the year, we have now also evaluated the Amazon Bedrock Guardrails for the purpose of contextual grounding and relevance checking. We have already those solutions in place because we do have like only our own documentation in use, but the assessment showed that this is an excellent tool for that stuff. And the importance of this kind of guardrailing will just go beyond the current limits, because we will at the later stages, we will include also third-party data for which we can't know if it's harmful or not as such, and also going into multimodal approach. And then the Bedrock Guardrails will be a truly essential must tool to have when going forward. And the hardcore part comes now. My friend Talha will go a bit into kind of details how this is actually implemented or built.
Thank you, Tero. Thank you so much for explaining what the generative AI journey at KONE has been. It is an amazing journey that KONE has already gone through. I would like to take a step back right now. All of you came to reInvent. There might have been a day, maybe Friday, maybe Saturday for you, where you would be packing your bag and putting things in it. What did you do? Did you pack all the things that you have, or you just only did pack the necessary stuff that you actually needed during the week? Packing unnecessary things in your suitcase just results in burden rather than actually helpfulness. Focusing on something that you need, focusing on something that is only important, actually results in a better journey that you do. That is exactly what KONE did as well. And let's have a deep dive into that particular pipeline. KONE's pipeline is relatively simple, yet unlocks a complex use case. KONE's technicians operate in multiple countries and work with hundreds of equipments. This poses challenges. What are those challenges? At first, understanding the input. Tero just mentioned they operate in 4 countries right now, but globally they have 60 plus countries on their portfolio, right? Understanding languages in all of these different places, understanding people, cultures, and so on is quite important. Second, extracting the needed information. User could literally input anything to the application, but how much of that is actually useful? Getting that needed information from the input is really important. For that particular aspect, pre-processing step comes into play. So the input is pre-processed where necessary, and messaging happens and necessary transformations come into play. KONE has kept that particular aspect of pre-processing agile so that as they expand to different countries, different markets, different products come into play, this pre-processing step can handle all of that. The heart that powers this use case is data that KONE has, containing risk-assessed documents, approved document manuals, equipment databases carrying all the necessary information, expert advices from THD experts, and also historical cases and their diagnosis, how previous cases were dealt with, and what was the application that a technician had to do over there. This layer takes care of the responsibility of finding what is most appropriate and useful for the task at hand. While data does contain the information needed, not all of data is really needed or relevant for the technician to do their job best. To provide highest quality and accurate responses, an evaluation check has to be done to narrow down to the fetched data to most relevant pieces of information. Once the relevant pieces of information come, you actually hop over to text generation. Once all these pieces of puzzles are in place, responses are generated to be shared with the technician. Technician can now do their job. Instead of calling someone in THD, they now have access to all the relevant information to perform their job. This is relatively a simple pipeline, but end-to-end, it solves a complex use case. So the end-to-end pipeline starts with the technician input. A technician input contains equipment ID and certain questions, right? First part is about the early diagnosis of the equipment being dealt with. For a given equipment ID, the databases are scouted for, right? And any relevant information and events that might have happened for that particular equipment are fetched. From this first pass diagnosis, report is generated and shared with the technician right away so that they can at first understand what they are dealing with. While this is happening, the challenge posed by technician in form of questions is taken to the pre-process stage. Since KONE operates globally, they have to be maybe translated as well, from different languages all the way to be standardized into one language. This then helps them generate a query combining together the data to be later fetched relevant documents. Here, the vector databases are scouted for, semantic search is performed, some documents are retrieved. But as I mentioned previously, not each and every document that has been retrieved is actually relevant for the use case. Evaluation of the context is really important over here, and then all these documents go through a check, and only the ones which are really needed pass through. Once the documents are collected, instructions for the technician are generated on which they can actually do the job, fix the elevators, escalators, or any equipment that has been broken. It doesn't stop over there. Further follow-up questions are also generated for the technician so that they know what they might be facing further. In this entire complex journey, one of the key things is the evaluation of the context. KONE does take pride in safeguarding not only their data, but also their technicians from any relevant or irrelevant or potentially harmful content. For this, they developed LLM as a judge technique. They provide the original issue, the documents that have been fetched, and give it to a prompt to a particular model where a model, an LLM, decides whether that document is actually relevant or not, resulting in a binary score: 0, not relevant; 1, yes, it is relevant. It helps them narrow down the documents actually needed for generation of the final results. There are some key components over here on the screen you might be seeing, that the prompt itself contains a direction to the model that you have to give a certain reason, as well as a score, right? This is really powerful, establishing a mechanism to deal with the documents. This technique could really work well for KONE, yet it took some time, exactly 1.02 seconds per iteration. 1.02 seconds might seem really low number, but when combined together with an end-to-end journey or the entire pipeline, that results in a significant burden. Hence, Amazon Bedrock Guardrails served as the next best candidate to achieve the same goal. KONE started experimenting the relevance check capability of Guardrails, which gave them faster and cost-effective responses. It is a fully managed solution, giving easy integration without any maintenance at all on KONE side. Added benefit was the detailed score that KONE got. Moving away from binary-based scoring, 0, no, it's not relevant; 1, yes, it is relevant. Now KONE has a spectrum where they could attach a certain threshold to decide whether the document should pass through or not. This particular implementation or evaluation and tests resulted in reduction of time spent. What took 1.02 seconds per iteration now takes 0.48 seconds in their pre-production tests. It is 2x faster and 38% cost reduction as compared to the in-house solution that they have. All in all, the most crucial aspect of the entire pipeline is the evaluation of this particular context, safeguarding the people as well as the data that KONE already has. Now let's take a step back and understand what are the key components in this entire pipeline. This entire pipeline has multiple points where LLMs have helped the technician assistant use case, right? The model choice provided by Bedrock made it possible for KONE. KONE started using different models for different tasks to reach the best price-performance balance. As I said, you only need the right items, the needed items inside the suitcase to actually be helpful for yourself. For example, they use Claude 3 Sonnet for generating a query and matching it against the databases. They also use it for the follow-up questions. Claude 3 Haiku for evaluation of the relevance for the documents. And the latest Claude 3.5 Sonnet V1 for generation of exact instructions for the technician. But the journey didn't start there. As of today, KONE is using the latest Anthropic models available to them, but that's not where they started. KONE has been a partner in innovation with Bedrock since the inception of the service and constantly matured with the evolution of the service and the models it offers. KONE has been working together with AWS to embark on the journey of generative AI since the very beginning from the Bedrock preview times, starting from Claude 1.3 models, today to Claude 3.5 Sonnet, and moving on to the latest models that will be offered in the future. All these components together, the entire pipeline starting from pre-processing of the input all the way till the generation of the output, and in between getting the relevant documents, assessing whether they are actually relevant and evaluation steps, and choosing the right models has led KONE to generate the most relevant, highest quality responses with minimal input provided by the technicians. I would like to invite Tero back to actually show you how it actually plays out in production.
All right, continuing how it actually looks at the end user side. But before that, just recalling again those kind of numbers. Roughly 40,000 field service engineers doing roughly 100,000 maintenance visits every single day. And those technical help desk calls, we have about 30,000 of those every single month. So we are truly talking about a challenge with the global scale. Our field service engineers, they have the field service management tool into which we have implemented as an application this technician assistant. And they're going to essentially just go there and start the automatic diagnosis with that specific equipment that they are working with. First of all, the solution checks that the actual equipment that you are with is the right one. And then, when that is verified, it gives automatically as a default the last 12 months maintenance records as a summary. So what has been done for that specific equipment during the last 12 months, indicating also potential failures that may be. Then it checks the IoT data on the recent faults. There has been, in this case, 14 times a certain fault with no current active alert being on. And this also then indicates that, hey, this is very likely the source of the problem. And if you don't know what that fault code means, the application tells you a summary, what it is all about, also giving you an indication that what is very likely the root cause and what is very likely then the way to solve it. Then it gives like preset phase of questions, and if none of those is like relevant, you can then scribble down your own problem description and asking specific questions that how do I solve this one, and then the technician assistant goes, checks the documentation, and provides you the guidance on that. And it of course has also direct access to all the relevant documentation like drawings, diagrams, whatnot. So it's easy to go and have only the relevant piece of information for you available. So truly like a super efficient way to get ensuring that whatever problem there may be on the field, that can be solved rather fast. Some of the achievements, a couple of hundred issues solved as of today with the solution. And like I said, 250 technicians in 4 countries right now in use. And we constantly do daily interaction with these users in order to understand that this actually is spot on and whatever we are developing is also actually needed there in the field. Couple of qualitative quotes from our guys. I like especially the last one, because it benefits the young, the current, and the old. Meaning that depending on what granularity level of information you want to have, you get it. If you need someone holding your hand, step-by-step guide how to solve a specific problem, you will get that from the tool. Or if you are experienced enough and want to jump to the deep end, that's also possible. Maybe what I love myself even more was that in the first pilot phase, We gave the opportunity for the users to opt out anytime they wanted. No one did. And one guy even said that, I'm afraid that at the end of the pilot period, you will take this away. That was like an evidence that yes, we are on something truly critical. Well, going forward, we are absolutely going to enhance the solution, kind of enriching the data sources, like already mentioned, that starting to use also third-party data, where the safeguarding and guardrails really comes critical, so that there is no harmful content coming out. Doing global rollout, 60 countries, 40,000 field service engineers, so this will be like a significant deployment. And going multimodal. Now it's only text-based, but we will be going then using also audio, using images, using video, whatnot. So also the recent releases from AWS, what we have heard, they will be super relevant going forward. Absolutely, we will continue our brilliant partnership with AWS, because this has truly enabled us to have like an early stage and easy access to high-performing foundational models, and also us being not only leveraging the latest services and practices, but also having direct access to those best world-class experts, so that we don't have to know everything ourselves. We can focus on delivering value for our processes and our customers. And with that, we want to continue being the leader in innovation. So really keeping the leveraging of AI and Gen AI technologies in our services. And for Gen AI specifically, as of today, we have a bit more than 30 different use cases in our portfolio. Some already in production, like the technician assistant, some nearing the production, and some at the early stages. And I'm confident that the amount of those use cases, it will just explode when going forward. And with this, Sean will say something on the next steps on this very topic.
Thank you, Tero. Thank you, Tero. What a fascinating story. I was blown away with it. Being the product manager for Guardrails, these are the kind of stories that I love to hear. These are real. We use elevators, escalators, moving doors all the time. But imagine how this translates to technology that is moving at an amazing pace. So thank you again for sharing your story, and we look forward to continue to work with you. I hope you enjoyed the session. We want to let you go with some useful resources. Now, please check out our product page and our user guide, which gives you all the details that we captured in the last 50 minutes or so. We also have some code samples for you on the GitHub site for Amazon Bedrock Guardrails. Please do check it out, because there are hundreds of examples which you can relate and hopefully take home with you to use in your own environment. We continue the journey tomorrow. We have a bunch of sessions. We have 2 breakout sessions which go into different stories of Bedrock Guardrails, so please do check them out. I would especially encourage you to attend the automated reasoning check, which goes into the depths of automated reasoning, our newest baby. And then, if you want to get hands-on with Guardrails, we have a wonderful workshop set up for you tomorrow afternoon, which we hope you will attend. Again, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We look forward to working with you and continuing the journey with you on AWS. Thank you.